Hey folks, David Stewart here. Next topic, today's topic. Wealth is not money or income. Really, we have to ask the question, what is wealth? I want to make a point of this video because it's something that I think a lot of people are misunderstanding about what wealth is and about what income means and all of these sorts of things of what's the purpose of money. So when you're talking about real wealth, wealth is stuff. It's assets, it's things which exist, okay? Wealth is not money. Money is a thing that you have to buy something that you're given by selling something or by providing a service. So it's what exists between you producing something and you consuming something. It's a medium of exchange, store of value if you want to hold on to it. So in other words, you could produce something today and buy something tomorrow, and it can be divided. So you can produce a big thing today and buy lots of small things tomorrow. It's fungible, right? That's money. Money is not wealth. People often misunderstand this. And indeed, whenever you're talking about, say, the ultra wealthy elite of our society, one of the big mistakes people mistake is they think that somebody like Jeff Bezos has $50 billion. No, his total value, the value of all the assets he holds, stocks and equities, property, real estate, everything adds up to $50 billion. He does not have $50 billion in the bank. He doesn't have $50 billion to spend. Very few people ever have billions of dollars in money that they can then transfer into something else. Rather, that's the value of the wealth that they have accrued over time. And indeed, if you were to look at something like the value of Amazon stock that Jeff Bezos holds, that value could be reduced to zero if somehow Amazon were to go away or the state were to seize all of Amazon's assets. If we lived in a communist country or something like that, all of a sudden Jeff Bezos's value would go from 50 billion to like pretty much nothing because all of his wealth is tied up in legal equity. In other words, he owns a portion of a company which owns stuff. And so that's the value of the company, of the value of the portion of the company that he owns. And even that is perceived value, right? That's the trading value of the equity. They don't necessarily own $1 trillion worth of physical things which they have in their possession, but rather the trading value is based on not just the value of the assets that they held on to and also the debt that they may owe to various institutions. And a lot of people don't realize this, but a super valuable company may still hold lots of debt against their assets because they use that debt for things that you need liquidity for. When you need to buy something with money, you can take out a loan on the actual things you have, and then you have the money to do that, and you can serve. Anyway, it's a whole cycle where a lot of people don't realize that there's not a lot of money just sitting around in a bank account for someone to use. That's actually a very, very rare thing. Rather, you're looking at the value of assets that they own, and that's the trading value of them, which can go up, which can go down, depending on how buyers and sellers of that stock are feeling about the future value of the company and things like that. So a lot of people misunderstand what the ultra wealthy are actually doing to have their wealth as well. So people tend to think of income as wealth. This is something that I notice is very, very concentrated in, I'm going to say, the lower managerial classes and midwits in general. People that are, in the middle of the IQ, maybe the middle upper IQ area. So these are people that work at things like universities, or they're teachers, or they're middle managers at companies. They tend to think income equals wealth. So they get very easily deceived by statements such as Warren Buffett's secretary paid more income tax than Warren Buffett. They're like, this world is completely upside down. It's bonkers. How could the secretary to Warren Buffett, one of the richest people in the world, pay more tax than Warren Buffett? It's all in the way that those things are worded. It's not that he paid less tax than his secretary, though that is possible. It's that he paid less income tax, and that's because he doesn't earn a wage. Income tax is paid off of wages. When you have a W-2, that's an employer paying you wages, and you're going to pay income tax based on those wages. And your employer, by the way, is also paying payroll tax, which you never really see. This is why when people jump into the self-employed area, they're suddenly shocked at how expensive it is to pay taxes when you're self-employed. It's because When you're getting a W-2, your employer is paying like 12% of that as payroll tax, or maybe it's 6%. I think you pay 6% and they pay 6%. I'm trying to remember the exact numbers, but I'm sure there's like an accountant watching this that's like, it's exactly 12.5%. And so you are paying 6.25 extra percent when you pay self-employed tax, or whatever it's going to be. So that is how that secretary is earning money. Is they're getting a wage. They're getting a salary for working for Warren Buffett. They're trading their time and their labor directly for money. That's not how Warren Buffett accrues his wealth and grows his wealth. He grows his wealth by trading things for other things which are more valuable, or increasing the value of the things he owns through capital investment and things like that. It's it's a long and complicated process, but really it boils down to he's increasing the value of assets which he owns. Then he sells those assets when he wants to trade the value of those assets for other things. So he sells stock, then he can use the money to buy a house, buy a new car, whatever he's going to do with the money. First, he has to get rid of the asset. So his value is the assets that he holds. And so whatever money that he lives on for the year, he's not paying income tax on, he's paying capital gains tax, because he's taking an asset which he owns and selling it, and then he pays a tax, the capital gains tax, on a portion of the profit that he's gained from when he acquired the asset to when he sold the asset. And there's lots of reasons why capital gains is thought of as different from income tax. You can have a debate if you want about whether capital gains and income tax should be the exact same thing. But the point is that he's not paying taxes on assets which he's just holding. And in fact, if he owns assets in a corporation, they're paying corporate tax. So he is in effect paying tax with a lower value of the assets that he owns, because the company's paying off part of their value in form of corporate taxes. But because he is actually making money buying and selling assets, it doesn't count as income. So you can get very deceptive journalists who will say things like, Warren Buffett's secretary paid more tax than Warren Buffett. Now, it's possible Warren Buffett made zero money during the year because he didn't sell any assets, in which case he wouldn't pay any taxes because he didn't make any profit that year. But more likely, it's that he's paying capital gains tax. It's the same thing with people saying, Donald Trump only paid this much tax in a year. He paid all the tax that he owes. He didn't happen to owe any tax because in fact, he probably got a refund. I think this was for like his presidential salary is a wage. And he basically gave the whole thing away to charity because he can make whatever money he needs to buying and selling assets. That's how Donald Trump has made his money. He made his money buying and selling real assets, real estate assets, buying and selling buildings, which are a physical object, that exists in the world. So his wealth is tied up in things that are physical, or things that are in the form of equity, portions of companies and things like that, not just money sitting in a bank account. And in fact, when he gets money, he ends up giving it away. Why would he pay taxes on money that he didn't use? He got the money, he gave it to charity. Should he pay taxes on money that he gives to charity? I guess you can debate that, in which case charities would get less money. The reason we have charitable contributions be tax deductible is so that you can give more money to charity. So charities get more money, right? That's why you do it. So, of course, Donald Trump is not paying lots of taxes. Well, he didn't keep any of the money that he had, and he still paid some taxes because he probably kept some of the money, or he paid capital gains taxes instead, or he paid taxes through the companies that he owns and things like that. People are not aware of how the wealthy make their money, and people are not aware of how the wealthy transfer their wealth into other wealth. Basically how you buy and sell assets and how you pay taxes on that. So I notice this is something that's very concentrated among the managerial class and the clerical class. Teachers in particular, they don't really get how tax law works, and they don't really get how people are actually making their money. So it's very easy to make them resent people who are wealthy because they don't really understand how the wealthy made their money. Now, the flip side of that is that there's a lot of smaller business owners who end up making their money sort of directly. If you're a self-employed person and you're doing really well and you make $100,000, you're having to pay income tax on that $100,000, and trying to squeeze that person tighter as if that they're someone who's really wealthy, not really dealing with wealth. Moreover, somebody who's making $1 million a year in income and saying, well, we're going to tax that, they're just going to find ways to make their money by buying and selling assets. Oh, instead of paying me $1 million as salary, pay me in stock options, which I can then do the trading with and pay capital gains taxes on. In fact, I think the Beatles did this way back in like the 60s and 70s. They formed a company that would collect their royalties and then basically they could pay capital gains tax on that rather than paying something like a 90% income tax, marginal income tax for all the money that they happen to make, because the income taxes were very high. So this is why people get confused. Like at one point, income taxes were like 90% above a certain amount. The wealthy never paid those income taxes. They always made their money buying and selling assets, or they'd find a way to get paid in the form of assets that they could avoid the income tax with to begin with. So anyway, wealth is stuff. I'm a very wealthy person because I have stuff. I have a lot of stuff, so I'm aware that I'm very wealthy. But that doesn't mean that I have a bunch of money in the bank to just give to people or to get stolen from me, right? Like if you wanted to steal my wealth, you'd have to come steal the physical things and find a way for you to sell them and then transfer them into things that you want, right? So wealth is stuff. And I stopped and I thought about this a long time ago when I was basically broke. I was living on, $1,000 a month, but all the stuff I owned, it's like I owned $100,000 worth of audio equipment and guitars and other kinds of stuff that I accrued over the years as kind of investment for my general businesses. Even if I wasn't making a lot of money that month, I still owned lots of stuff and I was wealthy in that sense because I had lots of things. Somebody who's renting everything, they have no wealth. You're going back to the whole idea of everything has to be rented. If you're renting all of your stuff, then you are not wealthy. You don't own anything. You're renting access to things which exist. But if you don't own anything, then you really don't have any wealth. You could be making $100,000 a year, and if all of it's going to pay rent, paying taxes, and you don't end up owning anything at the end of the year, you're impoverished. There's no wealth. You can't buy and sell anything. You have nothing to transfer to your descendants. I was in this situation when I lived in LA, when my wife and I lived in LA. We were making lots of money, over $100,000 a year, but all of that was getting paid to like $2,200 a month in rent, a ridiculous amount in income taxes, because because of the way income taxes target you. You're making over $100,000 a year, you're wealthy and you should pay more tax. At the end of the day, we were losing money. We were becoming more impoverished, making over $100,000 a year because of all of the expenses that existed in LA, and we couldn't own anything. We were paying everything in various forms of rent in order to just kind of float and go nowhere. As soon as we moved out of the LA and moved back home to Central California, we were able to actually have more stuff, have more wealth, buy a house, things like that, things that are tangible, that exist, that could be transferred to other people. That's really what wealth is. So anyway, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and leave me your thoughts down below. There's way more to this discussion, obviously, than I can fit into like a little 10-minute video. So let me know what your additions are to the concept of wealth. What is wealth? And what does it mean to be wealthy even? And is some of our idea of ultra wealthy somewhat illusory? I think a little bit of it is illusory because you're kind of basing value on trading value of stocks and not things that the person owns. And those fortunes can change rather quickly, I think. So anyway, let me know, and I'll see you guys next time.